Hi everyone, Flavia here and thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, we will be creating a beautiful floral note card featuring an outstanding die set by Autonew. I have been meaning to use this set for a while, but I'm only now finding the time to do so, and I hope you enjoy this video and feel inspired to create as well. So here is the die set that I will be using today. This is actually a layering die set that will allow us to create two beautiful hibiscus flowers, and we also get to cut out a branch with leaves and a couple of different friendship themed sentiments, which is great. When it comes to Autonew products, the packaging itself is just as outstanding as the content inside. As we can see here, for this one at the front, we have images of all of the different pieces that we're going to be able to cut out with the plates included in the set, and we also have this image at the bottom showing us the final result. Then, if we flip this, in the back we have a step-by-step layering guide showing us how all of the different die-cut pieces go together. And if you also sometimes struggle with selecting the colors for your projects, notice here that at the bottom left corner of this packaging there is a list of ink colors by Autonew that go together really well and that we can use to cut out these pieces to make beautiful flowers. Even if you don't have Autonew ink pads or cardstock, you can still use this chart as a guide to go over your supplies and find similar colors of cardstock or ink pads. So when we buy a product by Autonew, it really is worth it taking your time studying the packaging, because it can be not only helpful but also very inspirational. And as we open this packaging, on the left we have all of the die plates taped in place, and these are all of the plates that we need to cut out pieces to make two large hibiscus flowers. To save us some time off screen, I cut out all of the needed pieces for today's note card. So here we have one green branch and all of the needed pieces to make two large flowers from pink cardstock. I chose this pink cardstock because I love this bright pink color. However, this is a very lightweight cardstock. So to make each piece feel heavier, I cut it twice and I'm gonna stack them up. However, if you're already using heavyweight cardstock, you can definitely go ahead and skip this step. Another outstanding feature when it comes to Autonew's layering die set is that they have the keyhole system. Notice here that each one of these die cuts, for example, has a cutout at the bottom in the shape of an arrow. Sometimes it can be in the shape of an arrow or in the shape of a keyhole or even in the shape of a triangle, if I'm not mistaken. And that is to allow us to quickly and easily line up all of the different die cut pieces, which is extremely helpful and eliminate all of the guessing work. Since this is a layering set with two different flowers, all of the layers for one image have a keyhole cut out, which is the one on my right, and all of the layers to make the flower on my left have the arrow cut out, which makes it really easy for us to sort out all of the different pieces. To glue all of these pieces together, I'm using the Bearly Art glue, and as I do so, I'm gonna follow the numerical order of numbers engraved on each die cut piece. And again, I'm making sure that each arrow or keyhole cutout is perfectly lined up with all of the other layers. Once I am all done assembling my die cut hibiscus flowers, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of interest to each die cut by ink blending over them with a darker shade of ink. So for this green die cut branch, I'm gonna add a little bit of Simon Says Stamp ink in the color field, and the secret here is to make sure you do not cover the whole die cut piece. You actually want to have the two different shades of green showing, and the same thing goes for the pink die cut pieces. This time I'm gonna switch to Simon Says Stamp ink pad in the color Cherry necessary, and I'm gonna begin by applying a little bit of ink in the center of the flower. Then, using a paper scrap, I'm gonna protect the rest of my die cut piece as I apply a heavy amount of ink over the center of this die cut flower. Again, this step is definitely optional, but I do think it makes all the difference and it really takes no time at all. Once I am all done ink blending my die cut pieces, I will set them aside and begin working on my card base. Today's note card is A2 size top folding and measures 5.5 inches tall by 4.25 inches wide. To add a little bit of interest to the front of my note card, I will begin by hot foiling it using a large hot foil plate by Spellbinders and my favorite color of foil, which is the opal color by Spellbinders as well. To do the hot foiling technique, I will tape the hot foil plate and the foil in place so it doesn't shift during this process. I'm using a piece of Spellbinders Best Ever Craft tape because this is a low-tech tape that will not damage my cardstock at all once I am ready to remove it. We will skip most of the hot foiling process since it is always the same, but basically here on the top right corner of the screen I have my glimmer machine and it is already on. Once it is hot enough, I will place my sandwich, making sure that the hot foil plate is touching the hot platform, and on top of my sandwich, I will make sure to add the 2 shims that came with my glimmer machine. As you do the hot foiling technique, make sure that you have the note card open so you do not transfer any marks to the other side of the note card once you run this platform through the die cutting machine to apply pressure. And after I do all of that, check out the amazing result as I peel off the foil. By the way, this leftover piece of foil is perfect for doing the reverse foiling technique, and that is what I'm gonna be doing later so nothing goes to waste. Next, we need to cut out a large window from the front of this A2 size note card. We actually gonna need 2 large die plates in the same shape but in different sizes. So I'm gonna begin by taping the largest die plate to the front of my note card using pieces of low-tech tape, and then in the center, inside this large die plate, I'm gonna tape a 2 sizes smaller plate with the same shape. Once I have all of the plates taped in place, I will flip this note card and temporarily add a slightly smaller white panel inside. This white panel measures 5.25 inches tall by 4 inches wide, and I am gluing it now just so I can cut through all of these layers at once in the exact same spot. So once I have my sandwich ready with the white panel inside, I'm gonna run this through my die cutting machine twice or maybe 3 times to make sure I cut through all of these layers at once. Before I run it through my die cutting machine, I'm actually gonna add a piece of scrap paper under my sandwich to avoid the cut marks from my plates from being transferred to the cardstock. Once I'm done cutting all of the pieces out, I can go ahead and separate the yellow cardstock from the white cardstock. Then the next step is to glue a piece of clear acetate inside the note card. I'm gonna trim this piece of clear acetate off as much as I can, and then I'm gonna use liquid adhesive to glue the piece of clear acetate to my yellow note card. When working with clear acetate, I try to keep them from getting dirty as much as I can because it is not so easy cleaning them up. And that is why here I have a piece of clean paper towel under my cardstock, and as I add liquid adhesive, I'm gonna make sure that I do not add too much of it just to avoid the glue oozing out onto my piece of clear acetate. Once I have my clear piece of acetate glued to my yellow note card, I'm gonna go ahead and glue on top of that this white panel that I cut out earlier. So this piece of acetate will be sandwiched between the yellow cardstock and this white cardstock. And by adding this white panel inside, it will make the note card look neat inside as well. Then I can go ahead and fold this note card closed so I can begin working at the front panel. To do so, the plan here is to add this arched panel that I foiled earlier back to the center of this note card. I'm gonna be using pieces of double-sided tape around the edges of this panel, and I will only add a little bit of glue in the center just to avoid glue oozing out onto the piece of acetate. Once that is done, I can go ahead and open this note card, and inside this note card, in the back of this yellow arched panel, I'm gonna add a die-cut white arched panel just to hide all of the glue that is showing in the back of the die-cut piece. Once that is all done, we can go ahead and add these beautiful die-cut flowers. I'm gonna be using the Barely Art glue to adhere all of these die cuts in place, and at the bottom I will add the die cut sentiment for my friend that I cut out using metal plates included in the Autonew die set that I showed you earlier. I will use liquid glue to glue the die cut word friend in place. However, for the piece that reads for my, I will be using pieces of foam adhesive just to add a little bit of dimension. Then, as a final touch, using my shimmer pen, I will go over the center of these flowers just to add a little bit of sparkle, and here is a closer look at the final result. By the way, at the last minute, I decided to stamp a sentiment inside my note card that reads, "You are all kinds of wonderful." This is from an old sentiment stamp set by Autonew as well. By the way, even though we've added a piece of clear acetate to the front of the note card, this stamped message will not be visible at all when the note card is closed, working as a nice surprise for the recipient. And I also decided to add another white arched panel inside the note card, and that is where we can write a message that will be hidden and not visible at all when the note card is closed. To perfectly line up this second arched panel with the previous one so it is perfectly hidden behind it when the note card is closed, I will begin by adding liquid glue, and then I will place this panel over the previous one with the side with the liquid glue up facing towards the camera, and once I have it perfectly lined up, I can go ahead and fold this note card closed, and I will keep it closed until I know that the glue is completely dry. After a minute or so, we can go ahead and open the note card. So this white arched panel that I glued above the stamped sentiment is the space where later we can write a personal message that will be hidden behind the arched panel at the front of the note card. By the way, I did not resist making a second one, and here is a closer look at that one as well. So this completes this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching and felt inspired to create. If you're interested in any of the supplies that I used today, make sure to check them out in the description box down below. And remember, you can always head over my blog for pictures and more information. I hope you have an amazing day, take care, and happy crafting!